guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. With Halloween approaching, I did try to decorate this area. However, this area is definitely not an area that I want to continue filming in. I don't think that the lighting is very good. I hate the background. Everything's just bad. But I do have, well, first off, I have on my Friday the 13th t-shirt because Halloween is approaching. I have my Halloween Squishmallow. I have two Halloween pillows, a ghost and a Ouija board, and my puppy is laying there. If I'm sniffly throughout today's video, I do have a very bad cold, but this is the only time that I had to film, and I feel like it doesn't take that much energy to sit here and talk, so today's video is going to be on the much longer side, so let's just get right into it. As you can tell by the title of today's video, the topic that we are going to be discussing today is Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is a mountain located in Northern California, and it is said to be one of the most paranormal places on the entire planet. On top of that, it is also said to be a semi-active volcano, which to me is very scary. Do you know you have those irrational fears growing up that don't make any sense? Mine was volcanoes, which is ironic because I live in Canada. There are like no volcanoes here, but that was something that used to freak me out a lot when I was a kid, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. So like I said, this mountain is said to be one of the most paranormally active places on the entire planet, and it is said to be home to all things scary, spooky. Anything that we talk about on this channel could basically take place on top of that mountain, from the occult to fairies to everything in between. This mountain has it all. A lot of people have stated and come to believe that the reason that all of these strange happenings do happen on Mount Shasta is because the mountain is a portal. And that is something that I could definitely get behind in this case, and there is so much that I want to say about this specific topic. I do definitely think this is one that we definitely will have to visit a couple times on this channel because there's no way I could cover all of it in this video. The indigenous people who inhabit the area around Mount Shasta see the mountain as a magical and supernatural area. And with all of the things that I'm about to tell you, this holds up to be true. So like I said, this video is definitely going to be on the longer side, and I have a lot of information and a lot of notes on this video. So I think that the way that I'm going to present the information in the video is the way that I have my notes taken. So I'm going to talk about each topic that I want to talk about this mountain in sections. So we are going to be starting with what is known as the lost city of Mount Shasta. This is probably one of the more well-known stories from Mount Shasta, and that is that there is an ancient city underneath the mountain that is home to the descendants of what are known as the Lemurians. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Lemurians are a group of people, or a race of people that existed millions of years ago, and they are said to be extremely intelligent and peaceful, and they lived on a now sunken continent called Lemuria. And they were, I believe, the first people ever on Earth. The story with that is that during an unexpected apocalyptic event, the continent of Lemuria began to sink, but some of the Lemurians escaped to Mount Shasta and established a new city called Tellus, somewhere under the mountain where their ancestors are said to still live today. Because I have so much to say in this video about this mountain, I'm going to try and keep each topic that I'm talking about very short, but I'm still going to try and give you as much information as possible. So if this video goes on super long, I do apologize, but I do have a lot to say, and I'm trying my best to keep every topic kind of just brushing the surface. So what we're going to talk about now is the city under Mount Shasta and how it became known to be. So this all started in the summer of 1883 when a teenage boy named Oliver was helping his family with their mining claims. And this involved him taking a wooden stake and putting it into the ground wherever these mining areas were, and then marking it off in his notebook. While doing this work for his family, out of the blue at one point, Oliver began to shake and convulse uncontrollably, and while this was happening, his hand continued to write. His hand was writing all of these random things that weren't things that Oliver was thinking about. It was as if his hand had a mind of its own. This really freaked Oliver out, so he raced home as anybody would, and when he got home, his hand was still writing, so his mom started to provide him with more paper. And just as quickly as this episode started, it then stopped. And then for the next 3 years, Oliver would randomly have these outbursts where his hand would just start writing. And he would write and write and write until by the year of 1895, Oliver had written an entire book during these episodes. All the pages in this seizure-induced book were about the secret village inhabited by the Lemurian people located under Mount Shasta. After this, Oliver would claim to have been specifically chosen by the Lemurians to write their story and that it had been telepathically sent to him. In 1899, 4 years after writing this book, Oliver passed away, and in 1905 his mother decided to publish this book, and it is called The Dweller of Two Planets. And this book is a very important, popular piece of literature, and is said to be specifically very important to the occult. In 1931, a man named Harvey Spencer Lewis wrote another book on the phenomena of Oliver and the Lemurian people and the city under Mount Shasta. In 1932, the Los Angeles Times covered a story from a man named Edward Lancer who claimed that he had seen the mountain completely illuminated. He was riding on a train that was passing the mountain. When Lancer asked the conductor what he was looking at, he was told that they were the lights from the Lemurians. Lancer was very intrigued by this, so he decided to go to the nearest town and ask all of the people who lived there if they had known what was going on underneath Mount Shasta. He was told that there was a mysterious group of people who lived under the mountain, and they would often hold these rituals late into the night and into the early hours of the morning, and that is probably what the lights that he was seeing illuminating the other side of the mountain were from. It was also told to Lancer that these people who lived under the mountain would come into town from time to time. It was said that these people were always wearing bare feet and bathrobes, and they were said to be super tall, and when they would come down, they would normally buy large amounts of sulfur salt and lard. They said that the Lemurian people would always pay for these things in these like gold nuggets that always exceeded the actual price of whatever it was that they were purchasing, but they never wanted to change back or anything. They just paid for it in these nuggets and let them keep them. After this, Lancer had this dying need to want to go up Mount Shasta and try and see what was going on underneath this mountain. However, his want to do that was highly ridiculed, as it is believed that the entrance to this city is forbidden, and I don't really know much about what happened to Lancer after that. I couldn't really find much more information. However, I was able to find that it is unknown and it is not believed that he ever did find the entrance to the city where the Lemurian people were said to be living under Mount Shasta. June of 1940, a man named William Bridge Cook wrote of Professor Edward L. Lancer of the Mount Lowe Observatory, who claimed to have seen the city under the mountain through his telescope. He came across it while messing around with his telescope, and when he focused on what he was seeing, he described as seeing a huge Oriental-style temple, comparing the architecture to that of the Temple of Yucatan. Now, like I said, I do have other topics that I want to discuss about Mount Shasta, and we have been on this specific topic of the Lemurian people for quite a while now, so I'm going to try and wrap this up, but I do just want to clarify that there are still sightings of the Lemurian people in that area to this day. The sightings usually go that these very tall people are usually seen standing on roadsides in their long robes and bare feet before vanishing, or they're seen in areas just around Mount Shasta. But it is also said that these people have a very strong ability to blend in their surroundings and can often go completely undetected. But yeah, so there is a strong belief that there is a very advanced city of these Lemurian people living underneath Mount Shasta. On top of the fact that there is believed to be a completely inhabited city underneath this mountain, there is also a strange string of disappearances that have taken place around Mount Shasta. The area in question that these disappearances have taken place is Siskiyou County, which is the county located around Mount Shasta. And I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, Siskiyou, but please forgive me if I'm not. I always get ridiculed for the way I say things, so I just want to clarify. I don't know. As I've said in my previous videos, I don't really like to dive too deeply into missing persons cases anymore, especially if they have a true crime aspect to them, because they are very heavy, and sometimes, as I'm sure a lot of you know, they do more damage than good. So I'm just going to be really brushing the surface on a lot of these missing person cases in today's video. Angela Fuller's case is one that particularly stands out to me, as she was last seen by someone who had said that she had walked through the forest towards South Fork Road near an old logging road in the Twin Pines area, never to be seen again. Foul play is suspected in her case, but no arrests have been made, and as far as I could find, there were no answers to what happened to Angela. Devontae Morgan had been visiting Mount Shasta from San Francisco with his girlfriend when he vanished. He was last seen on a surveillance video walking north on Mount Shasta Boulevard on the morning of May 5th, 2020. His girlfriend told police they'd gotten into an argument and had broken up, and that he'd left where they'd been staying at the Cold Creek Inn for a walk. The girlfriend had said that at some point she'd left the room and had walked past Devontae, but they didn't speak, and since then he has never been seen again. And what we are talking about right now is just some of the missing persons cases that have taken place in Mount Shasta. A lot of these disappearances do have a foul play aspect to them, but a lot of them also have a more paranormal feel to them, and more than likely a lot of these we will never ever get answers to. I know a lot of you have come to my channel from the missing persons cases that I used to post, and I still do find a lot of national park and like these kinds of disappearances absolutely fascinating, the missing 411 type missing persons cases, and I am trying to keep this to a minimum, but even the law enforcement in the area say that Mount Shasta has a above average missing persons rate, and a lot of these people just disappear out of the blue as if they just completely vanished off the face of the earth without a trace. That being said, and I probably should have looked for a more like closer in time statistic, but in 2017 alone there were 3,453 missing persons cases in national parks alone. So you guys already know how I feel about this and how I think about this and what I think is going on. But these kinds of cases always pull me in, and I get so lost in them because I'm like, what the heck is going on in these national parks? The case that comes to mind while talking about Mount Shasta, which is a case that I've definitely mentioned on this channel before while doing all the missing 411 cases, is the case of the little boy who went camping, and I think the case is known as like the little boy and his robot grandma or something like that, but I'm just going to relay that story to you guys again to refresh your memory on how strange this case is. So this story goes, this 3-year-old little boy, who we'll call Andrew for the purpose of today's video, was camping in the Mount Shasta kind of like mountain ranges with his family. He was camping on like the banks of a creek, and around 6 p.m. the little boy Andrew completely vanished without a trace. The little boy's parents didn't think that he could have gotten far, so they searched the area for hours before finally calling police. And approximately 5 hours after the little boy went missing, he was found beside the trail, just laying in amongst some bushes that was being actively searched by people. Like, he was just laying there, like there was no reason that he wasn't found, and he should have heard the people calling his name and stuff. But there he was found, he was fine, he was in good health. A few weeks after this encounter, the little boy went to stay with his grandmother, Kathy, and while he was there, he told this grandmother, Kathy, that he didn't like his other grandmother, Kathy. So you following that? Like, he was talking to Kathy, saying that there was another Kathy that he didn't like. He was then obviously asked why and what he was talking about, and then told his grandma that when he was missing that day in the woods, his other grandmother, Kathy, took him into this like cave area that he described as creepy. He told them that this grandma, Kathy, is really a robot, and that she took him to a cave with spiders, and in the cave there were guns and purses, and there were other robots there besides his grandma, and that she made him lay down and look at his tummy, and she had tried to make him poop on sticky paper, but he couldn't go. He also said that this grandma Kathy said that she was from outer space and that she had put him in his mommy's tummy. She then decided that she was going to let him go and told him to hide out in some bushes until somebody found him. This obviously disturbed the real grandma Kathy quite deeply, and she continued to talk to her grandson about what he had seen, and he told her that this other grandma had the same face and features and everything about her was the same as his actual grandma, but she thought that what he was describing felt to her like he was describing her as a hologram. The real grandma Kathy, who was obviously thrown off by this story, called her son, the boy's dad, and told him what the grandson had told her, and apparently the dad had said that the boy had told him the exact same story. Now, a lot of people just dismiss this story as a 3-year-old's overactive imagination, but the grandmother actually had a strange experience of her own in that exact same area just a few years earlier. The grandmother had been camping in this exact same area again a few years earlier when she claims that she had woken up face down in the dirt outside of her tent, outside of her sleeping bag, and she said that she had felt ill and noticed that she had 2 pinpricks on the back of her neck. She also said that after waking up on top of feeling violently ill, she felt strangely emotionless, and her first thought was that she'd been bitten by a poisonous spider. The strange thing is, the grandmother had been camping with a friend, and this friend was staying inside of a camper, and when that friend woke up, he claimed that he had the same feelings and he also had the same strange markings on the back of his neck. The only strange thing that they could recount from the night previously was that they had seen some red glowing eyes in the bushes, but they had thought that this was just a deer. Now, this apparently is a very common occurrence of people who have vanished within Mount Shasta. Apparently they wake up either feeling ill or having these marks on the back of their necks, and then they just completely vanish. And again, a lot of these disappearances definitely fall under the category of missing 411. I want to talk about 2 more missing persons cases in today's video, and then I want to go on to talk about more of the paranormal stuff and the aliens and cryptids in that area. But because I have already been filming for such a long time and I feel like this video is going to be so long, I'm going to talk about the 2 missing persons cases and then save the other stuff for a part 2 separate video. The next disappearance that I want to talk about is of a woman by the name of Rosemary Kunst, who disappeared on August 18th, 2000 in the area of Spirit Lake, which isn't in the Mount Shasta range, but it is in with close enough proximity that I thought I could include it in today's video. Rosemary was 70 years old at the time and was heading into the mountains to spend time with a spiritual organization to try and help herself heal after her husband had passed away in a tragic car accident. Both Rosemary and her husband were in the vehicle, and Rosemary had been seriously injured in the accident and her husband had devastatingly passed away. So Rosemary had decided to go out with this group in hopes of having a spiritual awakening after the traumatic tragedy that she had just gone through. In this group of about 20 people was a man named Red Hawk, and on August 18th, 2000, which was a Friday, was the day before the group was set to return home. Red Hawk had told the group that he had a plan for them all to go on this long excursion of a day trip. But Rosemary had decided that she didn't want to go and she was going to stay back at camp. Even though Rosemary did stay back, she wasn't the only person at camp. There was still Red Hawk's young son, I believe he was 12 years old at the time, staying back at camp, and there was also a cook and a few other people, I believe. But anyways, at around 1 p.m., Rosemary asked Red Hawk's son if he wanted to go with her to the other side of the river because she wanted to go down and see if she could mingle with the spirit of her deceased husband. But the young boy declined. Rosemary decided that she was going to go on this hike anyways, and she took with her a sandwich, some trail mix, her journal, and then headed to the south part of Spirit Lake. At 5 p.m., the rest of the group returned back to camp, and Red Hawk was concerned where Rosemary was, so he sent some of the other group members out to the area where she said she was going to see if they could find Rosemary, but when they got there, she was not there. The sheriff's department and rescue teams were quickly notified of Rosemary's disappearance, and there actually ended up being 150 people out looking for Rosemary, on top of having helicopters, search and rescue dogs, sniffer dogs, you name it, they had it looking for this woman. Now, one of the things that makes this case so strange, actually there are a few things that make this case so strange, but one of them that I'm going to mention is from the area that Rosemary had claimed that she was going to try and mingle with her deceased husband, there was virtually no exit. Had to come back through one of 2 ways, one of which would have been the way that she left, where she would have had to walk past Red Hawk's son and the cook, who definitely would have seen her walking through camp again. And the other way was up a huge cliffside, and even professional hikers say that this would be absolutely impossible, especially without equipment, not to mention the fact that Rosemary was a 70-year-old woman. None of Rosemary's stuff was ever found besides 4 strands of hair that were found stuck to a bush that wasn't near any trail that she should have even been near. And this was found on August 22nd, 5 days after she went missing, and apparently this hair was never even DNA tested, so we don't even have any answers from that. Sniffer dogs and search and rescue dogs also never even picked up a scent while looking for Rosemary, and there was no wind or rain in the time that she had gone missing to the time that the search had taken place, so they should have been able to pick up something. From researching this case, I also found that the camp where the group of spiritualists were staying to the area that Rosemary wanted to hike to was very fast and easy of a hike. It was dry, and there was nothing that should have caused anything like this to have happened. Some people speculate that maybe Rosemary wanted to take her own life so that she could go be with her husband, but even if that was the case, where did she go? It's as if she just completely vanished, and this one just really gets me. I was listening to the Metaphysical podcast a couple weeks ago, and I remember hearing them talk about how a lot of people who've disappeared in the Mount Shasta area wake up with these pinpricks on the back of their necks or wake up feeling sick, a lot like the robot grandma situation. And this really got me wondering if Rosemary was experiencing any of that before she disappeared. Maybe she didn't want to go hiking with the other group because she wasn't feeling well or something like that, but I guess that is something that we probably will never get the answers to. So I have one more case that I want to talk about, and then I gotta wrap this video up, and I'm gonna try and do it quickly because my battery is about to die and I've been filming for so long that I have no idea how long this video is. So the next case we are going to be talking about is about a man by the name of Carl Landers. Carl was 69 years old and had headed out with the plan to climb up Mount Shasta. Carl was described as being in very good shape and was an avid mountain climber, and so with that being said, even though for someone like me who has never been mountain climbing in my life, nor do I have any desire to do so, Mount Shasta would probably be difficult for me to climb, but for an advanced experienced climber like Carl, it shouldn't have been that difficult. That being said, Mount Shasta is one of the 5th highest peaks in California. But anyways, on May 22nd, 1999, Carl and his 2 friends had been camping while climbing Mount Shasta, and that morning when Carl woke up, he wasn't feeling well, so he decided that he was going to get a head start on his friends so that if he had to stop to be sick or anything like that, he wouldn't be holding them back. Just a quick pause here for a second because that is another person who was waking up on this mountain not feeling well. Anyway, so after 30 minutes, Carl's 2 friends headed out, and they had planned, I guess, to meet Carl at Lake Helena, and one of the friends had actually turned around and didn't make it to the lake because he had also not been feeling well. But when the other friend reached the lake, he didn't find Carl. He'd asked a park ranger if he had seen anyone headed in that direction of the lake that day, and the park ranger had, but this person that he had seen was not Carl. So this friend headed back to camp. They waited for Carl's return, but by 8 p.m. when he still wasn't there, that's when they reported him as missing. And this is another case where they really exhausted all of their search efforts but found zero trace of Carl. And when I say that there was zero trace of Carl, there was absolutely zero trace of him. There wasn't even any footprints in the snow in the areas that he should have been hiking in. It is speculated that he disappeared some point during the hike from camp to Lake Helena, but there was no proof of this. There was no sign of him anywhere, and it is said that that area was pretty like brush free. Like there wasn't even any areas where Carl could be hiding if he was hurt or anything where he wouldn't have turned up. But there has been zero trace of Carl since that day. So that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. This one really stumps me with the missing people, and we are going to be visiting this again in the next video that I do on this channel. But guys, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.